It's me, Pearl from Pearl and the Prayers, and this is Tuned in Tarot. We're doing something different today, and every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., we're going to do this twin flame class. It is 8:11 on the clock. Ha! So I know that this is a significant time and a significant class that I'm finally teaching. So I heard the Twin Flame Cult podcast, and I was appalled. And I don't want people to be taken in by misinformed, um, most likely kind-hearted people who are interpreting messages through the vessel of their ego, and they don't necessarily have a desire, an interest, or a need to do a deeper dive into the messages they're receiving. I am not that person. I'm a person who must dive deeply into the messages I'm receiving because I've always been curious and needed to understand. And I didn't want to keep hearing these messages about twin flame stuff, all these convoluted things, all these different ideas, and not know where they're getting this information, why this wouldn't already be sort of written in some kind of a text if it had some validity. And then I just really wanted to discover sort of the larger themes that I teach about masculine and feminine energy, the sources and origins of that aspect of what I teach, which I know beyond a shadow of a doubt exists in every sacred text, and kind of give us an opportunity to look at those different texts. There are some things that get put into the Twin Flame Collective that I'm just like, where is this coming from? Why are people saying it? It has nothing to do with the twin flame journey, so I'm so confused. It's different things like the 144,000 number, even if that does have something to do with it, the people, they're getting it from the book of Revelations, which is 144,000 men descended from the 12 tribes of Israel. It's not, that's not anything about twin flames, but I don't know. Anyway, that's why we're here. And that's why we're starting, literally, we are starting with Plutarch at the very beginning. In terms of recorded Western recorded history, where we have this Greek philosopher. He's also pretty cool. He was a high priest of Delphi. He was one of the last high priests to serve the oracle at Delphi. Delphi. And he is, we're going to learn about him. I have more information. We're going to flesh that out, and that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to start talking about him, and I'm going to recommend this textbook that I typed in the description box below. And I will try to put a link if I can find a free version of this online, which I'm sure I can. It's very short. It's a dialogue that he wrote to one of his pals, Clea, and it's called On Isis and Osiris. And I do have a couple of resources for you. I forgot to write down one of them, but it's going to appear in the description box on the YouTube replay of this. So if you have to leave the TikTok, you'll be able to see it on YouTube, and you'll be able to click the link and get this resource that I recommend you read alongside of On Isis and Osiris, because it is basically explaining, it's deeper notes. I got a text that doesn't have a lot of, like it wasn't annotated. It didn't have extra information. So I went and hunted that down for us, and I have a link for that. So you can kind of have a little guide as you're reading, because it's a little dense and you might need more background information. I also have a good friend who's been part of the Tuned In Tarot team for a while. Her name is Ash, and she is well-versed in Greek mythology. So we're going to actually probably tap her as a resource occasionally throughout this early study of Plutarch and this text on Isis and Osiris. The reason I chose this book first is because our earliest documented writings of spiritual teachings are Egyptian, and Plutarch is someone who documented, his ideas, and he is a very interesting historian, and we'll go into how he's, we're not going to be like Plutarch is stating the absolute and total truth, because he's really not. He's like, it's almost like a blog post to, if you've got to think about this as, it's like his ideas about these parallels, because he's somebody who draws parallels, and we'll talk about that again, but these parallels between the Greek gods and the Egyptian gods. And so this is how we have more documented information about Isis and Osiris, because we don't have a lot of writings about this in general. So he goes in and tells the story from his perspective, and then he compares and contrasts the different elements of Greek and Egyptian ideas. But this is just a way for us to learn about Isis and Osiris, and also get a sense of what happens to sacred texts as they are interpreted through the different faiths throughout time, so that you can understand that by the time you get a message, it is heavily diluted through many different perspectives, and you have to seek the archetypal information in the which would be the overarching themes in the text. It can't just be that you are, I don't know, like seeing this one resource and being like, this person is writing down the truth. Every person is a vessel that the truth is filtered through. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, because a lot of people take these things that tarot readers on TikTok say as this ultimate truth, and they make decisions in their life that are detrimental to their health and well-being. And I just want to step in and bring some kind of a magnifying lens to some of the concepts that we're talking about, and make them a little bit more about their spiritual meaning and less about their meaning about what's going to physically happen to us with another person, is how I would like to look at it. But I am going to do a little reading also, because I, as a tarot reader, and the people that are here to learn about that call that we have to understand that masculine and feminine energy. I want to begin by using spirit animal cards. And the first card that I drew as I was shuffling here is Snake Spirit, which is time to heal. Also, thank you so much for the roses. I just saw this. And thank you so much for moderating. I am just doing a collective class right now, and this is every Wednesday at 8 a.m. I will be teaching on this theme. You might want to bring a notebook and a pen, or take notes on your laptop, whatever. But if you're interested in learning about the sacred texts that are often referenced in Twin Flame Collective, then you've come to the right place. So this first card that came out is Time to Heal and Snake Spirit. And I love that we get right into Kundalini energy in the very beginning of this class, because we're going to talk about that too. The next text that I would like to look at is one that is about Radha and Krishna. And that text, I think, is a lot more significant to a lot of the myths that we hear about twin flame stuff in the collective. Isis and Osiris it's so vaguely related. It's very difficult to describe, which is why I'm doing a class, because you have to see what is actually written to understand how vague those connections are. And I really want to show you that. But not that Isis and Osiris aren't important for twin flame. They are, but not in the way that you are being led to believe that they are. And so that's kind of what I'm interested in revealing to you. And I like that we're starting with healing, because what I want to do is heal some of the misconceptions that you have about this story of the twin flame, so that you can transform and expand and grow and shed that old skin, those old labels that are kind of keeping you stuck in patterns that don't serve you. Not that your person isn't important still in your life, that person still is important. All of the things about the twin flame dynamic that you feel are still valid, but you'll have more of an understanding of the true purpose of it, so that it's less about like getting your ego's needs met and more about healing some wounds that you share with this other individual and just sort of the way you agreed to do it, I guess. So let's get this message about the connection. I like that it's 55 also because it's like Hierophant energy for me, which is spiritual lessons, higher spiritual lessons, and also obstacles. And not understanding something is an obstacle to integrating it. And you want to integrate the information so that you can expand and learn from it, right? So what we have for this message is all of us need healing at times. And when snake spirit appears, it is time to repair, renew, and replenish yourself in your vulnerable heart. Self-care and maintenance work are needed so that your vitality can arise. Give yourself the space to nourish your own well-being. Vulnerability is necessary for friendships and partnerships to work, which means all of us will have tender emotions at times. Be gentle with yourself and others now. Shed the past and step into a new way of being, for vitality is rising in you. This might be a good time to honor the work you have done to heal, grow, and repair any damage within you, within those you care about, and within your community. Celebrate together how far all of you have come in your healing journey and all that you have created. Unburden yourself of anything that no longer supports wellness, prosperity, positive relationships, and well-being, and open the door for healing to occur. That is such an extremely powerful message. It's like spirit celebrating us for even doing this entire journey, for wanting to understand where this growth is coming from and what it's for. Hello, how are you, Orchid? I'm Cedar. So, this journey is about that rising of the Kundalini energy within self that connects us to the divine. It is about spiritual and sacred union with the divine through this healing that takes place with this other person. All right, we're going to get the masculine energy now, which is the miracles are endless, and it is the protection message. So I'm going to read this as if the masculine is speaking to us today, kind of like I do in the Tell Me Everything spreads. You are at a beautiful point in your life today, for your needs are being met effortlessly and in so many ways. Fully embrace this truth by focusing on all you have right now, including the positive relationships that sustain you, the work you are proud to do to contribute to the world, and the activities that inspire you and nourish your soul. I nudge you to pay attention because this is the perfect time to focus on the choices, actions, and behaviors that you know feed your soul and bring your heart contentment. Now is also the time when you will see many of your projects and commitments that were set in motion in the past begin to yield valuable gifts that will bring you joy and love and sustain you for a long time to come. Stay positive and share your well-being with others. The more you share, the more you will manifest. So be generous. I promise you will never run out of miracles. I realized that I was supposed to read the protection message, but I guess we were supposed to hear both of those messages. So here's the protection message. I'm asking you to pay attention to how you nourish your mind, body, and spirit, because right now we are wobbling around like a newborn calf on our unsteady legs. Perhaps we've been spending too much time distracting ourselves on the internet, or obsessing over our relationship, or choosing to eat food that is not healthy. Whatever it is, we're being nudged to assess how we are looking after our needs. We must remember that the universe has a way of reflecting back to us the events and conditions that match how we treat ourselves. I am reminding us that the universe wants to give us the very best, but needs us to do our part to participate and nourish our well-being. We must heed her message and everything will shift in our favor. Interesting. All right, so divine feminine's message to the masculine, also the protection message. This is koala spirit. Spirit has a plan. Number 35. In nature, the koala moves slowly through the branches of the eucalyptus tree, leisurely chewing the leaves, reminding us that life is not a race or competition. Chasing around after every distraction can keep you from recognizing that you have all you need and that spirit will always be there with gifts to sustain you. You are being asked to trust that by moving slowly, with faith in the abundance that is everywhere, surrendering to a power greater than yourself, you will be able to experience the manifestation of your desire. As you take your time enjoying the riches available to you right now, sitting peacefully, you begin to radiate the joy and abundance you seek. Spirit is here to help you discover happiness, pleasure, and contentment, all gifts that are yours now and in the future. Have faith and trust in Spirit's plan for you, and know that you are loved and cherished. The protection message is: are you feeling uneasy and mistrustful of the world? Have you been hiding in a safe spot, afraid to venture out because you're convinced that life and other people will disappoint you? I have appeared to let you know that your faith is misplaced. The present safety you seek is already passing away because things are temporary and outer conditions are always changing. Find your safety by placing your faith and trust in Spirit, who will grow the abundance that is already yours. Perhaps you are acting slowly and overly cautiously because you lack faith that there is more for you out there than what you know. You may have boxed yourself into a safe place that has nothing else to give you and become so familiar with it that you have forgotten to explore. Are you feeling pessimistic and convinced that there is nothing more out there for you? Well, I am reminding you that self-care is meant to replenish you so that you can venture out again in faith, trusting that there is no limit to the joy Spirit wants us to experience. Be good to yourself and reconnect with Spirit to reclaim your faith in things yet unseen. Wow, that's a good message too. All right, so that is our intro reading before we are going to go deep in on some information about Plutarch. So I didn't want to start teaching the texts until the people who want to join me have had a chance to either follow the link that I will provide. I'll remember. I'm going to remember. You're going to remind me. If I don't remember this week, I'll remember next week. So, but the link that will provide either free access to Plutarch, or you can of course purchase it. I got it used for, I don't know, like $4.99 or something. It was really inexpensive. And you also don't have to purchase the text. You can just listen in on the class. But the text is dense and you might need to like read it over a couple of times. We're going to take it really slow because I don't have a deadline and I want to go thoroughly into the text. So we're not going to try to overwhelm you, and we're going to try to sprinkle in information about the Greek gods and goddesses that are mentioned as well. So it'll be not just the text, but also getting some more background on some of these gods and goddesses so that you feel a little bit more like knowledgeable. And I'm sorry if I'm not seeing these comments here when I was reading. I'm good today. Thank you so much. And you'll help me remember. Awesome. Thank you. So also, do you want to be a moderator, Orchid's Child? If you're interested in that, let me know. So the first thing, let's just talk about Plutarch's bio. And I'm going to be typing up some notes so that next week at the beginning of class, I will have a link to a document that has a little summary, a brief summary of my notes, basically, so that you know what I talked about. If you don't want to watch the entire whole class and you just want a reference, you'll have that next week. So for now, though, let's talk about Plutarch, where he was from, who he is, what is his story. Let's get into it. So he was born around 46 CE in a very small principality, I think it would have been called, named Kyrenia in Greece. He was well off, he was an elite, he was highly educated. Let's see, I'll just go in on my notes here. He was a prolific writer, writing over 200 works. He was born in Greece during the Roman occupation. Really well respected, privileged, highly educated. He was married to somebody named Timonia, something like that. That looks like what I spelled. She had 4 surviving sons and a daughter that we know of. He traveled frequently. He was friends with the Roman emperors, including Hadrian and Trajan. And most interestingly to me, he was one of 2 priests of the Temple of Delphi, who assisted the oracle, which this is like towards the end of this period, like what the oracle, I don't know when exactly the oracle that practice finally ended, but he was in like the later stages of that phase. And so he would have tended directly to the oracle. So the information from On Isis and Osiris is not something to be taken like lightly if you're a spiritual person. Like if you consider yourself a high priestess or somebody who is versed in like sacred ritual, etc., then reading the opinion of the high priest at the Temple of Delphi in Greece is, it should be something that you're connected with, because this is somebody who worked in these sacred arts, and we can assume that he was making sacrifices and doing the mystery rites. He was granted Roman citizenship. He was well liked enough to be granted Roman citizenship, and which meant he would have a toga. He could wear a toga. He could vote. He could have a trial, which is a big deal. You couldn't have a trial unless you were a Roman citizen. So, his citizenship, when he took citizenship, he took the name Mestrius, and he's most famous for his biographies called Parallel Lives, which was this really clever way of preserving Greek culture in a place that was under Roman rule. So Romans had occupied, and Greek culture could have been completely subsumed, but Plutarch sort of prevented that from happening by creating these really well-researched. He was highly respected. He would play with chronology because he was also an entertaining writer. He's one of the most entertaining historians from the period that you could read, or any period really. And because he was someone who was entertaining, you have to sort of take his accuracy. You have to like sort of put that into question a little bit, because we don't know how much he says to give effect, right? And I think that it's always important to keep that in mind. Again, as I said before, these are vessels that are channeling messages. So the vessel knew how to be entertaining. He would play with dates so that it would fit the flow of his storytelling. But his parallel lives between Greek public figures and Roman public figures that were very important. He would write one Greek figure and one Roman figure. And this was this way of showing these similarities, showing that they were of equal significance or importance, and doing it in such a clever and interesting way that he was accepted into Roman society, and Greek culture was respected. So that's a pretty big thing to have done. He also wrote the Moralia, which was what it sounds like, ethics and morals, a study of ethics and morals. And he's known for a lot of these dialogues, like the one on Isis and Osiris that we're going to talk about beginning next week. He's a, I think, how do we refer to him? It's like he would have followed Plato and Socrates, but there's a word for that. Let me see. I have it right here. Yes, a Platonist, a Greek Middle Platonist philosopher, historian, biographer, essayist. All right, and I'm typing up the document for that so that that'll be ready for you. Okay, so that's my intro about who Plutarch is. I have a couple more little notes I wrote down. He's brought certain characters to life with to glorify and entertain. Like that was really what his parallel lives was like. And even allowing flexibility with his facts, which we talked about, but he was still highly researched and regarded. So he was anecdotal and opinionated is how his writing is. There was a clear personality of the biographer, and he gives us some significant things. Like he gives us the scene Cleopatra, which we can trace the origin to his story. At the end of her life, discovered by the Romans in full panoply of Egyptian monarchy, from Shakespeare to the present day, that comes from Plutarch. Influenced modern biography, that's Plutarch. So if you're interested in learning more about what he actually said, you can grab this text on Isis and Osiris. I typed it in the description box below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you just popped in, you don't know exactly what's going on, you can hop over to my Tuned In Tarot YouTube channel, scroll all the way back, and you'll be able to see the class that I am about to start doing every Wednesday at 8 a.m. about sacred texts that are often referenced in the Twin Flame journey. We will be starting next week. If you do purchase the text and you want to, or find it free online, because it's definitely free online. It's not a long text. I know you'll be able to find it. Or get it through your library for free. You can definitely get it. If you want to go ahead and start reading like the very first intro, I'm going to put in the description box on YouTube also a link to this, basically annotations, updated annotations, so that you're not just lost. Like it describes who Clea is, which is the person that he's writing to in the dialogue. It gives like dates and contexts for a lot of things. So I'm going to put the link to that in as well. And I wrote that down. So I should, usually if I write something down, it happens. That is true for manifestations all the time. But that's what we're going to be doing. So if you're very interested in that and that sounds good to you and you want to learn more about what Plutarch had to say about Isis and Osiris, I will be doing that each week. And just to give you that information about Isis and Osiris in general, why we chose Isis and Osiris and why they are referenced is because they were twins, but they're not physical. This is the thing that I get a little frustrated with about the story. It's like they weren't like physical beings though. And as far as we can tell from the way the texts are written, this is, and Plutarch really kind of does a really great job of illustrating that these were personifications of cosmic energy, right? So I don't know. We'll have to, I'm open to all. We have a chat here on both sides, and I'm open to dialoguing, especially with people who have more background information on any of these topics, and who want to contribute that, give resources that they suggest, or help to flesh out certain gaps in my knowledge. But from what I can tell, what we all have come to know and love this twin flame story, it seems to be very heavily driven by our egos and wanting like these little fairy tale things to be true. And there are beautiful and transformative aspects of this journey, but I feel like they're a lot more metaphorical than we are really wanting to believe, I think. Not that we can't see physical manifestations, because we can create physical manifestations through the quantum field anyway, but that the journey itself is a spiritual one, always, 100%. So this text by Plutarch, I will give you a warning, it is very dense. You're probably going to have to read it one little small section at a time. And you're probably going to need to use the annotations too, but once you get into the flow of it, you're going to understand what he's talking about, and it is interesting. He does this thing that's very difficult for me, where he switches out the Egyptian name of the god with the Greek name. So in his like parallels, he has Typhon is like Set. So when he's talking about Set and how Set kills Osiris, he calls Set Typhon. So there's a lot of that that's going on where you're just like, wait, who's he talking about? But the notes that I found really do assist with that as you're reading it. And I read this really fast. I read it in like a night. Or like maybe over 2 nights or something. I had like a tiny bit left, like a couple of pages. So it's not something that's going to take you a long time to read, but you can take your time with it. It's very interesting, and you're going to get a lot of information about Greek and Egyptian gods, and most of us are interested in those things, and they are frequently referenced on tarot cards. So if you're holding up a card and it's got Egyptian and Greek references on it, you're going to have more of a reference for that. So this is another benefit to the class, is just being able to be a better, more informed reader, which I think is really important for all of the people that are constantly listening to these messages and taking advice from people who don't know what they're talking about. All right, I'm going to turn off here my YouTube feed, and I'm going to move over to TikTok if you would like to do personal readings. And the only reason I do that YouTube is so that I can play music, because I can't play live music during YouTube, but I can play it on TikTok. So if you want to join me for the rest of the reading, you can hop over to TikTok. Otherwise, I will see you next Monday for the collective tune-in, and then of course next Wednesday for the official first class on Isis and Osiris, starting with Plutarch. See you next week. Bye.